Okay, so today we're diving into something that I know a lot of people think about, especially those of us that wear an Apple Watch Series 10
Mm,
with GPS and cellular, and that's RF exposure.
yeah.
And, what is it all about? And we've got the official document here. It's called RF Exposure, Apple Watch Series 10 GPS plus cellular 42 millimeter case.pdf.
Okay.
And we're going to go through the document and kind of pull out some key safety numbers and what they mean for us, for everyday users.
Right.
So think of this deep dive as like going behind the scenes and really understanding how our Apple Watch interacts with those invisible radio waves and the safeguards that are in place.
It's like a little window into that invisible world around us that we don't think about a lot,
Yeah.
but is always kind of there.
Yeah, and affecting us.
Right. So,
Yeah.
so with these devices being, so close to us, almost 24/7, right?
Right.
Having access to the actual data and
Yeah.
having access to the official safety information is super valuable. It helps us make informed decisions about our tech
Okay.
and also maybe avoid some of the kind of fear-mongering and kind of hype that's out there.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
So, so let's kind of start with the heart of this discussion, which surrounds something called the specific absorption rate, or SAR.
Yeah.
For those of us that aren't scientists, what's the simplest way to really understand SAR?
The simplest way to think about SAR is it's a way of measuring how much RF energy or radio frequency energy your body absorbs when you're using your device.
Okay.
So in this case, when you're using your Apple Watch,
Got it.
it's basically a rate. So it's the rate at which your body is kind of soaking up this energy.
Okay.
And then the important thing is to know that there are safety limits
Okay.
for SAR. And those limits actually differ depending on whether you're using a device next to your head or you're using it, say, on your wrist.
Right, which makes sense. I think intuitively, holding something to your head feels different than wearing it on your wrist.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, this document actually goes into how these SAR limits can actually differ in different regions of the world.
Yeah.
Can you maybe give us a rundown of that?
Yeah, for sure. So in some countries, the safety limit for SAR when it's used against the head is 1.6 watts per kilogram.
Yeah.
And that's averaged over 1 gram of tissue.
Okay.
So it's a very localized measurement.
Okay.
But then for the wrist, in those same countries, the limit is 4.0 watts per kilogram, but that's averaged over 10 grams of tissue.
Interesting.
So it's a kind of a larger area.
Okay.
Now, in other countries, the head limit is a little bit different.
Yeah.
It's 2.0 watts per kilogram, and that's averaged over 10 grams of tissue.
Okay.
But the wrist limit stays the same at 4.0 watts per kilogram over 10 grams.
Interesting.
So there are these kind of slight variations depending on where you are in the world.
That's really interesting. So, so how does Apple actually go about testing this on the Series 10 to make sure that we stay within these limits in our everyday use?
So that's a great question, and it's something that I think a lot of people wonder about.
Yeah.
Basically, what they do is they set the Apple Watch's radios to their highest possible transmission levels.
Okay.
So they're really kind of going for the worst case scenario in a way.
Got it.
And then they actually have like models of the head and the wrist
Oh, wow.
that they test with.
Interesting.
And they simulate how we typically use the device. So against the head, they'll have this model with a little 10 millimeter gap.
Okay.
And then on the wrist, they just test it directly on the wrist.
Okay.
And it's important to note, too, that 10 millimeter separation, that's actually the recommended guideline if you're holding the watch near your face.
Got it.
Even briefly.
Okay. Makes sense.
Yeah.
So those are the test scenarios, but what were the actual SAR values that they recorded for the Apple Watch Series 10? Specifically for the models A3001 and A3002,
Right.
what did the tests actually reveal?
So for those models, when they tested against that more stringent 1.6 watts per kilogram head limit over 1 gram, the highest SAR value they got was 0.80 watts per kilogram.
Okay.
So that's for the head.
Got it.
And then when they looked at the 2.0 watts per kilogram head limit, which is averaged over 10 grams, that was even lower, only 0.13 watts per kilogram.
Okay.
And then for the wrist, under that 4.0 watts per kilogram limit, the highest they got was 1.01 watts per kilogram.
Got it.
So
Those numbers seem quite a bit below the maximums.
yeah.
Like, what's the takeaway for us as users?
Yeah, I think the takeaway here is that these reported SAR values are actually significantly lower
Okay.
than those safety limits.
Right.
And what that tells us is that the Apple Watch Series 10 has been designed and tested to operate well within those safety margins, whether you're using it near your head for a quick call
Right.
or wearing it on your wrist all day long.
Right.
So it gives you a good buffer
Okay.
under the guidelines.
Got it. So just to kind of wrap things up here, we've seen that the Apple Watch Series 10 has really been put through its paces when it comes to RF exposure testing.
Yeah.
The results clearly show that its SAR values are comfortably within those safety limits set for both head and wrist use in different parts of the world. And these tests really do mimic our real-world interactions with the device.
Right. Yeah. And if you think about your own experience using this device, you can have that confidence that it's been evaluated
Totally.
against those standards.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that brings up, I think, a really interesting question for all of us to consider. Knowing now about these specific safety measures for RF exposure in the Apple Watch, what other aspects of our personal technology that we use every single day, might we want to explore from a similar health and safety perspective?
Right. That's a great question to ask.
Right. And something for all of us to think about as we go about our day. So thanks for diving deep with us.
My pleasure.
It was really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.